Howdy Neighbors, David here. And today on Boondock Stallions, we're going to be defending the Dursleys. I know, it's blasphemy for most people who are big fans of the Harry Potter universe to even consider defending the Dursleys, but I have a weird family and would like to, in fact, give them a little bit of defense. And I mean the Dursleys, not my family. I mean, obviously I'll defend my family just a little bit, but now, I know a lot of people have heard the theory that there's a horcrux inside Harry, and that horcrux is what is causing all of the negative energy around the Dursleys. And a lot of fans just are not willing to accept this. Everybody is just so gung-ho to hate on the Dursleys because the books show them in a light that is much less than flattering. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, no, they were great and wonderful people. But, I mean, we don't honestly know. And to start off this theory, let's talk about the Slytherins. Now, because of, if you're a fan of the book or the movie, either Hagrid or Ron giving Harry the line that not a witch or wizard went bad that didn't come out of Slytherin was what turned us all against Slytherin. Once we all heard that Harry's best friends, the two people that he trusted the most in the wizarding world, were of the impression that dark wizards were akin to Slytherin House, then we all saw dark wizards, and the movies really didn't show them in their best light. But we know that there are good Slytherins out there. I myself, all right, I'm not a great guy, but I'm all right, and I'm a Slytherin. And so I feel like I should go out and defend those who are not getting defended. So, from what we know about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the scar on Harry's forehead, it was an unintended horcrux. And now J.K. Rowling has come out and said that it wasn't an actual horcrux because the magic needed to be performed wasn't done. Voldemort made it on accident, but it still serves all of the purposes of a horcrux and has tethered Voldemort to life. So maybe it worked anyways. And so, if you remember, whenever Ron or Hermione or even Harry was wearing the locket with Voldemort's horcrux in it in the movie, they would tend to take on the worst parts of their personalities. It would just feed off of everything negative. And while so many negative things were going on in the Deathly Hallows, it had so much to turn on them. And Ron, I mean, I love Ron, but he's always been a bit wishy-washy on whether his allegiance is lied. I mean, he's always loyal to Harry, but also could turn on him at the drop of a hat out of jealousy and envy and all the other random things. But from the very beginning with the Harry Potter books or the movies, Professor McGonagall observes the Dursleys all day long and gives us basically the worst impression. I mean, I'm not saying they were the jolliest people, but I'm not saying that they were necessarily evil and nasty the way that they were. And my first bit of evidence for the fact that they weren't always bad people is the fact that they took Harry in. Now, you could say, well, Dumbledore left them a letter. So, who's Dumbledore to these people that want nothing to do with the magical world? He is nobody. The baby has magical protection as long as he's in your house. So, if they were awful, evil people that didn't care, off to an orphanage you go. Drop him off at the fire department. Leave him in a dumpster somewhere. Don't do that. That's awful. But, you know, for example, there were a million things that if the Dursleys were as truly awful as everybody wants them to be, they could have gotten rid of Harry. They pawned him off on some other distant relative. And where were all of Harry's other relatives? I mean, yes, okay, Grandma and Grandpa were passed away on both sides, and no cousins, aunts, uncles, twice removed, none of that nonsense. All right, fine. And that even seems a bit contradictory itself, because if all pureblood wizarding families are interrelated, then the Potters should have some relatives out there that we don't know about. And now I know that Dumbledore wanted Harry to be growing up away from the wizarding world and all of that. And while that's all a very fine and good excuse, I'm pretty sure Sirius could have, had he not gone to prison, given him a life in seclusion similar to that. But that's where I'm going with, is that the Dursleys took a baby in. They took a baby in, they fed it, and who's mean to a baby? Obviously, at first, you feel like they would have cared for the child, the baby. Who doesn't love babies? would have loved him and played with him and treated him exactly like Dudley. But deep, deep in the back of Petunia's head, and now, I mean, Petunia never hated her sister. She never hated her sister. It was always jealousy with her sister. She was always just jealous and envious. She wanted to be a wizard. She wanted to go to Hogwarts. She wanted her letter. She wanted to be special, and she was just another human being and couldn't understand that even that in itself is an amazing thing. Being just you is always an amazing thing, and Petunia really missed the point and let all of her negative thoughts dwell and look bad on how she felt about her sister. But she always loved her, even at the end of I don't remember if it was the seventh book or the seventh movie, or it might have even been a deleted scene. I've seen everything and read everything, so it gets a little interweaved sometimes. But she even talks about how Harry didn't just lose his mother, but Petunia lost her sister. And while they might not have gotten along at all times, they're still siblings. No, I love both of my sisters, whether they're being awesome to me or whether they're being complete dickheads. I love my sisters. And so I don't see me not taking in any of their children and loving any of their children if something awful had happened to them. So the Horcrux could have been feeding on all of Petunia's jealousy, all of the wanting of being special that she had, and turned it inwardly at hate towards Harry. Vernon never liked James Potter, and from what everybody who's ever met James and Harry Potter says, Harry is James continued. So the Horcrux could have even fed on that. And as far as Dudley's concerned, I mean, children just mirror their parents. So if their parents were being shitty to Harry, then Dudley would have been shitty to Harry, which also means be good parents and make sure your kids aren't shitty to people. I mean, right? Be excellent to each other. And so I feel like it was the Horcrux feeding on all of those things and turning it against them. And also keep in mind that they had 11 years. We really didn't see much. I mean, there was that chapter with Uncle Vernon in the very first Harry Potter book, but we never really got much of time with the Dursleys to get to fully know them before they adopted Harry. Then we flash forward into 10 years later, 10 years of living and breathing with this Horcrux every single day. Yeah, you don't think that Voldemort's powerful enough to corrupt 2.5 muggles? It seems like the kind of thing his Horcrux would have been able to do. And now let's try and compare this with my own family. I have a cousin, his name is also David, and our grandmothers are sisters. And so every Christmas and spring break and summer vacation, we would both stay with our grandmothers. They lived together, so the four of us were all in a house, and that's how we grew up. But my cousin's grandmother and her daughter, my cousin's aunt, not mom, were very much the Aunt Marge and Aunt Petunia to me growing up, because they only see my mother. I mean, it's a little personal, I know, but they only see my mother. And so using my mother inside of me as the Horcrux, they only saw what they didn't like about her when they were being around me. And so I understand the dynamic between Harry and Dudley and how that relationship went with their family. And so I also know that my aunt and cousin aren't awful people. I mean, I'm not big fans of them, but they fed me, they housed me, they took care of me, they clothed me, all while being generally unpleasant because they're family and they loved me, even if it was a little resentful. And so using that, I feel like the Dursleys and Harry had a similar, that's how the Horcrux, I'm sorry, I rambled on because I was trying to read my screen. So I feel like that was how I could compare the Dursley family with my own family. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, but what about all of Harry's friends at Hogwarts? They all weren't really affected by the Horcrux, but keep in mind that everybody in the wizarding world had spent 10 years hearing the legend of the boy who lived. They all loved him. They loved him so much even before they ever met him, simply because it was he who survived. It was he who was responsible for the Dark Lord disappearing. So everybody in the wizarding world, old and young alike, loved Harry, and that horcrux stood absolutely no chance. And plus, they all wanted to be his friends. They wanted to be around him and know him, whereas the Dursleys, given their own choice, like I said, if they were truly the horrible people that everybody wants them to be, didn't really want him. They didn't plan on adopting their nephew. It just happened in the middle of the night because there was a couple of deaths in the family. And so that's just my take on the Horcrux and Harry and the Dursleys. I rambled on actually a little longer than I thought I was going to. About 11 minutes. Goodness gracious. If you like the video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes.